the whole world shaking, and you feel your heart is breaking. Take my hand, no hesitating. Oh, 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 oh. When you're just so tired of trying, all alone you feel like hiding. Together we'll keep fighting. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains too high we can climb it. Fearless, we'll take in the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Can you see the sun is shining like a new hope? Feel it rising, coming over the horizon. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains too high we can climb it. Fearless, we'll take in the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. There's no stopping.
Good evening. It's Saturday, February 20th. It's a little bit after 7 p.m. and it was the first sunny day in a long time. So I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, okay, I'm just checking my sound, and my sound is good. So I hope you got outside. I actually, I've been busy. I was inside for the new office chair, fixed it up, and then I kind of did some other things, I had to straighten up and then do the preparation for tonight's episode, and that took a bit. The first thing I want to mention that I have switched agencies. I'm now an agent for, and let me put up here, eXp Realty. And they are a cloud-based company. All our work is done in the clouds. And they are growing exponentially. They're doing great. What I like about them, there are many agents, not only here in Virginia, but nationwide. So when I take your listing, it will get even more exposure now. They have great software, and actually we'll be doing onboarding this week and getting used to the new software. All the software will be new for me, but I'm hearing nothing but great news about it. So I am with eXp now, okay? So I wanted to say that. And let me also then do our little introduction for tonight's show. That's not it. Oops. This is it. And that's tonight's episode. And it's the President Biden's first-time home buyer credit, which he wants to be $15,000 that will go to your down payment. Now, I went to different websites to read more on this, and there's even more questions that I have about it. And again, it has to pass Congress. It's not enforced yet. This is what he wants. They have to see if maybe $15,000 is a little bit too high, but he's pushing for the 15,000 right now. Okay. Now, I've worked with programs where you received a $5,000 credit if you're a first-time home buyer, but that money you could use for either or your down payment and or your closing costs. You could put it both ways. All right. So I don't know if let's say your down payment will be let's say $7,500. Can you take the additional amount and use it to pay for your closing costs? I don't know yet. Okay, we have to see. It might just be for down payments. It'll be nice if it will help with closing costs as well. All right. So the question is, who is eligible? And since it's called a first-time home buyer's credit, it's for first-time home buyers, but it does not mean you can never have owned a house. So let's say you had a house, you sold a house, and now 3 years later, according to this new program, and I've used other programs like this that are similar, once that 3 years have passed, of no longer being a homeowner, you are considered a first-time home buyer again. Okay? So you could have owned a house in the past, but it has to be sold. You have to be off the mortgage, okay? And you have to wait 3 years. And once that 3 years has passed, you're considered a new home buyer. So you could take advantage of this program. And again, I'm bringing this up. I talked about this last week. In fact, with last week's show, we had a discussion of, it was a discussion on common questions of home buyers in this situation. It's mostly first-time home buyers. And there's a Facebook page where they discuss about the concerns they have, questions they have. Many times they're saying, "Hey, I'm a home buyer now. We closed, and it's great news." But a lot of questions come up, and this will come up. This $15,000 home buyer credit. Okay, so the question is, when is that money received? Okay, and it looks like, upon what I'm reading, that it will be applied at closing costs. So evidently, there will be some paperwork that you would have to fill out with the government, and that paperwork would be prepared for your closing. So when you close, from the government, this money payment will come for your down payment. Okay, so this will take place at closing. Now they have to do that because people might apply for it, and then if it comes to them as a check, they say, "Well, I'm not going to buy a house now. I'll spend the $15,000. I'll buy a new car. Excuse me, I'll do something else with it." Okay. It's like a lot of people who got money, I believe it was FEMA, to raise their houses because of flood areas. So they got grants from the government, and they took the money, and then they just kept it. They didn't do anything about the house. And then, and then a lot of places where they they took advantage of this, it happened to be in areas that were known to flood. Okay, the biggest area here that's an area that floods is Pocosin. And So the government said, okay, in these areas of high flood zones, we're going to help you out. And they took the money, and then they used it for other things, except for raising their house or making it more uh, protecting it from a flood, and that didn't happen. So this money is not going to, you're not going to get a $15,000 check from the government. It's going to be applied at closing. Now, before I bring up question number 3, I'll show it here, but I'm going to bring it in my graphic because I found in my graphic I have 2 article references, and actually let me hide this here. Biden looks to give big boost to home buyers and builders. Now this one is actually from CNBC. CNBC happens to be, some people argue that they're too positive, that they don't show the good side and the bad side with some of their predictions. I'm talking mostly about real estate and the mortgage industry because that's what I read on their websites. So here's some key points here. Biden is proposing a $15,000 first-time home buyers tax credit, which will be assessed immediately by the buyer, thereby serving as a down payment assistance. Now, it says assessed immediately by the buyer, but what I read before, that it'll be applied then at closing. Okay, and it might have been in the other article, but I'm just going to move down here. FHA could also reach its monthly insurance premiums under the new leadership. Now, in one episode that I did, we talked about FHA and your monthly insurance premiums. When you are putting down less than $20,000, you have to get what's called monthly insurance premiums. So you're paying an insurance on that amount above 80%. See, the more money you put down on the house, the more at ease the bank is at, because you have more equity, and the chances that you will default on the loan becomes less. Now, anything could happen, right? For instance, the pandemic, and some people lost their jobs, they were laid off. Okay, there's no guarantee that you're not going to have financial difficulties. But in general, it's a safer loan for the bank when you put down 20% and not 3.5%. All right. So with this program and what President Joe Biden is working in is that he's going to somehow ease this monthly insurance premiums, so they're not as high as they were before. Now, years ago, if you took a FHA loan out, and when you reached 20% equity in your house, right, it was taken off. But this happened right after the real estate bubble, the crash. They took that away. So if you started with an FHA loan and you had monthly insurance premiums, it stood with the loan. And the only way you could get rid of it if you would refinance it. Okay. So, but if he reduces it, so if he does reduce it and to the point where you don't have 20% equity in the house, it will make your monthly payment smaller. And then it brings up here, and then the elephant in the room is mortgage rates, which are now on the rise. They are rising a little bit, not a lot. So don't get nervous, don't get scared. They're still so much lower than they were in, let's say, prior to 2008. They're really, really low. So don't get nervous about that. I mean, they might go to 3 to 3.5 next year. And that's assuming that the economy still goes strong. All right. but it's not going to all of a sudden be 6-7%. Okay, so don't worry about that. All right, and again, everything depends on the economy going on the right track. All right. Now, what some people are arguing or discussing, and we could talk a little bit more about it here in the next article. They go into the more deeply, but many people who are arguing this bill, they're saying, well, there's a lot of people buying houses now, and we need more inventory. Okay, there are many more buyers out there than there are houses on the market. And going back to Economy 101, when you have a strong demand with little supply or inventory, in our case, houses, prices will go up. And that's what's happening right now. So why offer this $15,000 right now to stimulate the buyers? We don't need that. Okay. Now, it's a good question. But what President Joe Biden is doing, he's also encouraging, and I don't know if you could see this here. No, I got to do this on the other sheet. Hold on. I can open this up here. But you see, they're encouraging new construction of both single and multi-family housing, okay? So, which is what we need. And one way he's trying to do that is by changing zoning laws. So now that's a whole other topic. They're easing some restrictions, but in the same sense as they do it, they still are protecting the environment. But some parts of it would be changing zoning regulations. What does that now? That's another big discussion, and we could spend a whole other episode on discussing changing in zoning. They might allow, for instance, where there's more industry, some housing to be built close by to that. Okay, so he's trying to stimulate that so there's enough supply that will meet demand, and then your prices will even out. Now, I'm going to give an example of Hampton, which is where I am, and there's a lot of housing going up, but there happen to be a lot of apartment buildings, and I'm not crazy about that. I mean, unless later on they convert to condos, but I don't, I'm not happy about that. Let's put it that way. I'd rather see the opportunity of buying your apartment than actually renting it out. Now, may it change? It might change. I'm seeing signs going up that are saying, beautiful apartments, luxury apartments. I would like that to be more so that they are able to be purchased. But we'll see what happens on that. I also highlighted this part over here where home prices are also rising at the fastest pace in 6 years, according to CoreLogic, more than 8% higher in November, year over year, driven by record low interest rates and pandemic-driven demand from buyers looking for larger suburban homes. And that's another side to this, where people are actually moving out of the cities where they may have less living space, and they're going out to the suburbs and looking for bigger homes where they could set up a home office, where especially if both husband and wife, if they're both able to work at home, maybe set up two home offices within the house. So they're looking for this. There's a demand for this now. We've realized that people don't have to spend 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, commuting back and forth from work. They could maybe work 2 or 3 days at home and go into the office maybe 1 or 2 days. That's what a lot of people do in New York City. They take the train from Connecticut. They take the train from Long Island. It's a long track. I remember when I lived in Brooklyn, Brooklyn, New York, and and the other boroughs began to get too expensive. People were buying homes in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, the Poconos, right over the border. My parents had the house built in 1974, long before they were going to retire, and they did not live there during the week. They would go up on weekends. They would go during the summer, but they weren't full-time residents in Pennsylvania. But a lot of people did that. They would drive an hour and a half to New York and still jump on the subway. All right. So here now you're spending really 4 to 5 hours, maybe even 6 hours a day in commute time, because you're always running into traffic. All right. To, beat the high cost of living in New York City. And now all the boroughs, it's expensive all around. All right. But people saying now with today's technology, I don't have to go in the office every day. I could go in there once or twice a week and I'm fine. I could do the majority of the work from my home. And there's a lot of good benefits to that. There's the benefit of having quality time, and there's a benefit of using less gas, driving in the back and forth. So it's for the environment and having good quality time with your family. Maybe some people say having all that extra quality of time, being home, maybe it's not such a great thing, but that's a whole other story. All right, so a lot of people are looking for the larger homes, more out in the suburbs, where they could commute to work, and they may not even have to go in once or twice a week. Okay. So down here, Biden is proposing a $15,000 first-time home buyer's tax credit, which could be assessed immediately by the buyer, thereby serving as a down payment assistance. High home prices, along with the strict lending standards, have made it difficult for young buyers to come in with the cash needed to secure a mortgage. First-time buyers defined as those who have not purchased a home in at least 3 years made up 32% of all November home buyers, according to the National Association of Realtors. Historically, that share is closer to 40%. Now, this is getting more into why prices, even with construction, have gone up. And if we look in the highlighted area here, the tariff trade wars have raised the cost of goods and services. Lumber from Canada got ridiculously expensive compared to what it was just a year ago. Labor shortages due to immigration policy and more have made it difficult to build homes, said David Stearns, a former Federal Housing Administration commissioner under the Obama administration and former CEO of the Mortgage Bankers Association. So, this is an area where might build up a little controversy. Those tariffs have raised up prices for a lot of goods and services, as well as the pandemic, where you have less people coming to work or some factories or manufacturing plants closing down, and that's also driving up the price, as well as shortages of different products that are needed to build homes. Okay, you might have seen that when you've gone to Ace Hardware, to a Lowe's, or to Home Depot, and you were looking for some sort of cut wood, and it just wasn't there, and other items that are need to build, and those items just weren't there for numerous reasons. Okay. Even with immigration, and I know sometimes that becomes political argument, but a lot of these jobs are done by immigrants, and to have a plan for them to come illegally and then becoming citizens after a certain amount of time, which President Joe Biden is working on, it's actually a good thing, all right? Because a lot of these jobs are not being done by Americans. And even given the chance, they will not stick with the job. I'm going to give you a prime example. Right here, we have a very well-known fish company that sells fish through their store and on a network. And when they began, and when I say they, I mean the fishing industry began to fish for the red crab, which you have to go actually deeper to get to them. So it's a little more costly to get the red crabs. But I think once you reach that level that you are able to fish for them, there's a lot of them. So that was becoming the hot thing. It was supposed to be just as good as lobster. And so the ships were bringing them in, and they needed more people to crack the shells on the crabs and take the meat out. And they tried to hire local young people, and maybe it wasn't all young people, but they would stay for a couple of days and then leave because it's very labor intensive, all right? So there are some programs where you are able to bring in some immigrants legally to do work, and that's what this company did. And they're saying that we need, at times, immigrants to do this work because Americans just won't. It's too labor intensive. Now, you could argue if it's true, if it's not true, or the reason why, let's put it that way. But it is a situation, all right? And we see it now with these materials that are needed to build, and we need more people to manufacture them, all right? All right, I want to move on a little bit faster here because see, this was the other one article here where they had questioned, like for instance here, the real estate market is so hot that that's hurting investors. That's a whole other thing. I don't want to get into that right now, but this really took a different. All right, this is what I want to bring out here. I don't know if I can highlight it now. Let's see. Okay, I think I could. I think I can. Okay. Only with added supply will the home buyer tax credit be effective in boosting home ownership and enlarging the middle class, Yun said. He's in charge of Realtor. Without supply, home prices jump much higher with no meaningful gain to new home ownership. So what they're saying, and what this one person who commented here, I want to show that too. Excuse me. So the tax credit of 2008 and 2010 were great ideas as demand had created. Today, the last thing we need is more demand for housing. We need more supply, not more demand. Here in Metro Denver, in January, single-family homes are selling for $30,000 to $100,000 above list price, and adding a FTHB tax credit would only make this worse. Now, he does bring up a good point. So that has to be balanced out with new construction, with new inventory. Okay? And again, and I've said this quite a few times, and let me see, can I make myself bigger? Aha! But I want to leave this in here. Maybe I can't. If I bring this, I can't do the ball. I can't I. All right. All right. All right. Um, I believe that the main reason, and it's not only I believe, that's the common knowledge, that um, there are not as many homes on the market because uh, people are afraid of COVID. For example, if you're selling your home but you're still living there, and especially if you're a little bit older and you're more vulnerable to COVID-19, you have fears of people walking through your house. You have fears of open houses where you might have a lot of people walking through your house. So uh, this is being held back, all right? And people are saying, well, I'll just work on my house. I'll do some improvements. I'm not going to, move. I'm just going to keep my house. I'm thinking that as we get out of this syndrome, this pandemic, as it eases, and it's beginning to ease, we still have to be careful. But if we continue doing the right thing, getting vaccinated, wearing our mask, practicing social distancing, wash our hands, we're going to beat this. And by late spring, summer, I believe there's going to be a lot of more houses coming on the market. All right. So this has to be accomplished first. We have to get in control of it, which will be helpful. And as we read more about President Biden's tax credit, to see how he's going to help new construction, that's needed too, because we need, with this demand, we need more inventory. It could either be resales, or it could be or resales and or new construction. So that's greatly needed. Which is basically, I went through, yeah. What I want to add to this, who's trending right now, are the first-time home buyers. And these are the people who might have had the jobs that were furloughed, who work in retail, who work in the hospitality industry, okay? And they're the ones who are the first-time home buyers, and they've been furloughed, and they just don't have the money for a down payment, okay? So to get the economy going full swing, I think it's a good idea to give this tax credit. But it has to be in unison or in tandem with somehow building new homes, all right? Because otherwise, as it's stated in the article I just showed, it's going to push up home prices even more. Because if we have more people in the market with short supply, it's going to make home prices go through the roof. So there has to be a key part to it. So I think it's a good idea. It still has to be passed. Maybe it won't be as much as 15,000. Maybe it'll be 8,000. We'll see. Okay. As far as I know, too, I want to bring this up. I'm not thinking there will be any type of income limits to it, because a lot of the times with first-time homebuyer programs where they give you money, you have to make a certain amount of money and can be above that. Now, with many programs I work with banks, they were pretty liberal with that. I mean, a single guy can make like 37,000 to 8,000, or a single woman, and that was good. And the more people you will have living in the house you're going to purchase, that salary goes up higher. So you have a couple of people living in the house, you could make maybe 45,000 a year, and so forth. As far as I know to this point, I do not think there's any income limitations. I haven't read anything, but we'll see in the future. All right. So if it's, I think it's needed, but it has to somehow help the construction industry to build no homes. And we have to get out of this pandemic so more people will not fear putting their house on the market. All right, so we've been on for about 30 minutes, and I'd like to keep it that way. I actually hear my my producer, Lyndon Potatkin, calling me. We might have a special guest in the audience.
Chris, great news. We have a special guest in the audience. He is an American composer and lyricist, widely considered one of the greatest songwriters in American history. His music forms a great part of the Great American Songbook. Born in Imperial Russia, he arrived in the United States at the age of 5. He published his first song, Marie from sunny Italy, in 1907, receiving 33 cents for the publishing rights, and had his first major international hit, Alexander's Ragtime Band, in 1911. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Irving Berlin.
Okay, so he was. I thought that was the tape with Mr. Irving Berlin. I apologize. We'll get that fixed up by next week. I did the whole thing. I'm sorry. I apologize. We'll get Mr. Irving Berlin back next week. All right. So again, if you're ready to buy or sell, please call me through the social media that's this episode is going out to. You could contact me through that. You'll see my contact information on my closing. So you're looking to buy or sell, give me a call, okay? And we'll see you next week. Remember to wear your mask and keep socially distanced. And I hope I picked the right video here for them. And be kind to each other as well, all right? And we'll see you next week. All right, take care.